How's everybody doing? My name is Anthony Brian Logan, and today we got to talk about the House passing a measure for Washington, D.C. to become the 51st state. Now, there's a lot I want to say here. First of all, a little bit about me. I was born in Charleston, West Virginia. I grew up in Virginia Beach, that area. So I've been in D.C. a lot. I got a lot of family in D.C. I probably have more family in D.C. and the surrounding area than anywhere else in the country, all right? So I've been to D.C. a lot. Field trips, family reunions, you name it. I've been there a lot. Okay, I was just up there last year. I know D.C. a lot and the surrounding area, Virginia, Maryland. People that are trying to push for D.C. to become the next state say, hey, we pay federal taxes. We work for the government in some kind of capacity. We're in the military. We're reps. We're this, we're that. But we don't have representation from the federal government. There's no senators or House reps in D.C., right? So rather than us paying federal taxes and not having any senators or House rep, we must become a state in order to get that representation. Now, technically, D.C. does have a U.S. House rep, and that's Eleanor Holmes Norton, but she is what they call a non-voting delegate. She can vote on certain things, but not on everything that a normal House rep of any other state is able to do. But my thing is, okay, why not become part of Maryland? Because geographically, that's where D.C. is. And Virginia, too, to a certain extent, because to go back a little bit, both Virginia and Maryland ceded land for D.C. to become what it is. Because in the Constitution, the capital of the country cannot exist within a state. It must be in the federal district that's totally governed by Congress, right? Without the reps. That's just what it is, the Constitution. So they passed this measure, but in order for that to pass, they have to amend the Constitution because it's written that you can't have D.C. in a state of its own or in another state. So like I said, Virginia and Maryland both ceded land to D.C. to become its own district, right? It's neither technically a city or a state. It's its own little thing. People are saying that has kind of, it's changed over time. You got 700,000 residents and you got urban sprawl happening. So D.C. is not much different than Upper Marlboro, Prince George County, Silver Spring, these areas, like Fairfax, Alexandria is all pretty much the same place, right? Which is kind of bogus because, okay, you got Atlanta, Georgia. That's still Atlanta, like the proper area. You have outskirts that are close to Atlanta, but they're not Atlanta. They have their own governances. You got different counties going on, but that's a different story. And for now, I digress. The whole point about D.C. is that they're saying urban sprawl is the reason why it must be a state. But like I say, why not become part of Maryland? That'll make the most sense. You would get your senators, your House reps, and all of that. Okay, if you're worried about paying taxes and no representation, then just do that. That'd make the most sense. It'd be easier. But that's not the reason why they want to become a state. The reason why they want to become a state is because they get 2 more senators. The way it is right now in the Senate, you have 50 GOP senators, 48 Democrats, 2 quote-unquote independents that always caucus with Democrats. So basically they're Democrats. Speaking about Angus King and Bernie Sanders, right? And then that gives you a tie right there, 50-50. So since you have Kamala Harris and Joe Biden in there, Kamala Harris would be the tiebreaker as a vice president. So even if all GOP senators voted one way for a particular thing to pass through and then go to the president to become a law, you can have 50 Democrats essentially plus Kamala Harris override it every time. But to strengthen that, to weed out some of the moderates or whatever, they'll make D.C. a state because D.C. is overwhelmingly Democrat. It's like 90%. Probably that's probably being conservative, 90% Democrat. Because one thing about D.C. is that, like I was saying, people, they work for the federal government in some kind of way, and the federal government grows, gets raises, when you have more Democrats in office. That's generally how it goes. This is why Washington, D.C. is the richest metropolitan area in the country. It's not they don't have some kind of big industry there. I mean, what industry does Washington, D.C. have? Are they making cars? Are they making cell phones? Is it like Silicon Valley? Are they pumping out tech, like what's happening. No, the biggest industry in Washington, D.C. and the surrounding area is the federal government. So people that want bigger government are going to be Democrats 99.9% of the time. Therefore, we have a really Democratic place. It's going to be permanently in the hands of the Democrats, at least until the foreseeable future. I don't think I will see a time in my lifetime where D.C. becomes Republican. Now, to go back to the whole Maryland thing, some would say, well, that's unfair, ABL. D.C. is majority Democrat. You're going to put them in a red state. Maryland's not a red state. There may be a Republican governor, I think Larry Hogan, if I'm not mistaken, if he's still in there or whatever. That does not make Maryland a red state. Maryland is a blue state through and through, period. Okay? D.C. is its own thing, but the surrounding area is a really big part of Maryland, all the way up to almost Baltimore, and that's all blue. And Baltimore, obviously, and that surrounding area is all blue. So, I mean, those are the two biggest places, and they're solidly blue. So adding D.C. to the mix it'd fit right in, right? You could put it in Virginia, but, I mean, it'd fit mostly Maryland, in my humble opinion. This is a power grab, nothing more than that. It's funny how Democrats would attack a guy like Vladimir Putin talking about, oh, he wants to vote himself in power forever. He wants to strip freedom from his people. He's a dictator, a tyrant, all this and that and the third. But they do the very same things that they accuse him of doing, okay? They want to pack the Supreme Court going from 9 justices to, 13? They want to add 4 to just, shift the balance. So rather than the way it is right now, technically it's 6-3 GOP, Democrat. They want to make that 7 liberal and then 6 Republican. Because if they're able to add 4 right now, they will all be appointed by Joe Biden. And they're going to all be liberal. So they're trying to control the Supreme Court by adding more justices, packing the Supreme Court, which is against Ruth Bader Ginsburg's wishes. Obviously, she was a liberal Democrat in there. It's against Stephen Breyer's wishes, who is a liberal Democrat still in the Supreme Court. And they want him to retire because he's not playing along, right? But anyway, it's against their wishes. Joe Biden even was against it back in the early 80s, but now all of a sudden they want to do it because it's a way to control things. And then they want to add 2 more senators that are going to be liberal by making D.C. a state rather than just leaving it the way it is, according to what is written right now in the Constitution, or having it become annexed by Maryland, which would make the most sense geographically. Like I say, I've been in D.C. a lot. I know kind of what it is. It'd make the most sense going right there. But rather than doing that, they want to make it a state. It's all about trying to grab power for the foreseeable future. So as I close, I want to say this. These Democrats are behaving more and more like the Nazis that they claim people on the right are. Oh, you're a Nazi. They say people on the right are a Nazi because they don't want their kids to undergo gender reassignment surgery at 5 years old without parental consent. They'll say that you're a Nazi for that, right? But when we say, hey, you're trying to pack the Supreme Court and you're trying to add more senators that are going to be liberal so you can maintain control for the foreseeable future, then it's like, that's not really, I don't understand. Communism and all that kind of stuff is about control. It's about more government, bigger government. That's what it's about. Papers, please, that kind of thing going on. They accuse us of doing that, but really, it's them. It's clear to see. I mean, at least anybody with their eyes open is able to see it. If your eyes are closed or if you're asleep, maybe you won't see it, but I think it's pretty clear. But I think I'll leave that right there for now. And what say you? Do you support Washington, D.C. becoming the next state? If that's your viewpoint, let me know why in the comments below. Or do you not support them becoming the next state? If that's your viewpoint, let me know why in the comments below. You guys pretty much know where I stand. It should remain the way it is. Just remain the way it is. It's written that way. It makes the most sense. And if anything, have D.C. become part of Maryland. If anything. But they don't want to do that because they want that power, right? It's funny how they don't want Puerto Rico to become another state. They don't want to talk about that because they got to pay taxes too. They got to pay some taxes. But if they become a state, then they could kind of go conservative, Republican, and bring some of that in there. So they only want to, quote unquote, empower the places where they know they're going to be able to get power from. It's a quid pro quo type situation. Am I right, wrong about that? Whatever your thoughts on that are, please let me know in the comments below. And that's all I got to say for this video. If you like what you heard, please comment, rate, share, and subscribe. Peace.